Graham's surname meaning and history presented by coadb.com, where we offer affordable genealogy research. Surname meaning: it is a Scottish habitational surname denoting someone who lived in or was from the town of Grantham in County Lincolnshire, England. And it was also spelled Grandham, Granham, and Graham. The family traces its ancestry back to William de Graegham, who died in 1139. He was an Anglo-Norman baron who came to Scotland, where he was Lord of Grantham, and he was the son of Alan de Graegham, who was born around the year 1080. Another controversial theory states the family descended from a warrior chief named Graym, who attacked and demolished the Roman wall of Antonius across Scotland around the year 420 AD. Noble titles held. There was Patrick Graham. He was son of Alexander Graham of Kincardine, and he held the office of Archbishop of St. Andrew, and was created Lord Graham around the year 1440. William Graham, the third Lord Graham, was elevated to the peerage of Scotland as Earl of Montrose in 1553, and it says here he died at the Battle of Flodden in 1513, so there's got to be an error somewhere in here. James Graham, who was the fifth Earl of Montrose, a soldier, poet, and viceroy, was created Marquess of Montrose in 1644. And James Graham, who was the fourth Earl of Montrose, was further elevated to Duke of Montrose in the year 1707. And the family was seated at Buchanan Castle. The Graham baronetcy of Bracco in the county of Perth was a title created in the baronetage of Nova Scotia in 1625 for Sir William Graham, who was son of the third Earl of Montrose. And here we see a list of the Graham baronets of Bracco, all the way through the fourth baronet, Sir James Graham, who died around the year 1700. And they were seated at Bracco Castle, seen here. The Graham baronetcy of Esk in the county of Cumberland was a title created in the baronetage of England in 1629 for Sir Richard Graham, a member of Parliament for Carlisle, and gentleman of the horse to King Charles I, who fought at the Battle of Edgehill in 1642. And here we see a list of the Graham baronets of Esk all the way through the 13th baronet, Sir Ralph Wolfe Graham, who died in 1988. And Sir Richard Graham, the third Baronet of Esk, an English diplomat and politician, was elevated to the peerage of Scotland as Viscount Preston in 1681. And here we see a list of the Viscounts Preston all the way through the third Viscount, Charles Graham, who died in 1739, as well as a picture of the family seat of Nunnington Hall. The Graham baronetcy of Norton Conyers was created in 1662 for Sir Richard Graham, in honor of his services to the restoration of the monarchy. And here we see the 6th and 7th baronets, respectively, both named Bellingham Graham, as well as a list of the baronets all the way through the 10th baronet, Sir Richard Bellingham Graham, who died in 1982. And here we see the family seat of Norton Conyers House. The Graham baronetcy of Gartmore in the county of Stirling was created in 1665 for Sir William Graham, and the title became extinct on the death of the second baronet, Sir John Graham, in 1708. And here we see one of the descendants of this family, Robert Cunningham Graham of Gartmore, born 1735, a poet and politician. And here we see Gartmore House. The Graham baronetcy of Netherby in the county of Cumberland was created in 1783 for Sir James Graham, who was later a member of Parliament for Ripon. And here we see a list of the Graham baronets of Netherby all the way through the 6th baronet, who died in 1997. And on the next slide, we see Netherby Hall, the family seat. The Graham Baronetcy of Kirkstall was created in 1808 for Sir James Graham, a member of Parliament for Cockermouth and later for Carlisle. And we see him here, as well as Sir Sandford Graham, the 3rd Baronet, who died in 1875. And a list of the baronets all the way through the 5th Baronet, who died in 1895, Sir Cyril Clark Graham. Baron Lyndoch of Balgowan in the county of Perth was a title created in the Peerage of Scotland in 1814 for Thomas Graham, a British Army officer who fought in the Napoleonic and French Revolutionary Wars. Malays Graham was created Earl of Menteith in 1427. He was the only son of Sir Patrick Graham of Kincardine. Here we see a list of the Graham Earls of Menteith all the way through the 8th Earl, Sir William Graham, who died in 1694. Now the 7th Earl of Menteith, William Graham, was created Earl of Airth in 1633. He was Lord President of the Court of Sessions and a Privy Councillor. Viscount Dundee was a title in the Peerage of Scotland created in 1688 for John Graham of Claverhouse, a Scottish soldier who served in the Franco-Dutch War and the Jacobite Rising. Onto the landed gentry, there was Graham of Fintry in Scotland. And it looks like one member of the family was Sir David Graham, the 6th Laird of Fintry, who died in 1592. Graham of Murray's Hall in Perth, Scotland, represented in the 19th century by John Murray Graham, a Justice of the Peace and Deputy Lieutenant. Graham of Mosnow in County Dumfries, Scotland. And they were represented in the 19th century by Major General Graham, born 1834. Graham of Airth, which we discussed previously. Graham Stirling of Strowen in Perth, Scotland, represented in the 19th century by Thomas James Graham, who was a Justice of the Peace Deputy Lieutenant and Commissioner of Supply. Graham of Burntshields, and it was represented, they were also seated at Urd House, and it was represented in the 19th century by William Graham, Esquire, Justice of the Peace, Deputy Lieutenant, and a Member of Parliament for Glasgow. Graham Clark of Manor House in Froster in Gloucestershire, England. Graham of Drumgoon in County Fermanagh, Ireland. Graham of Edmund Castle in Cumberland, England, represented in the 19th century by Thomas Henry Graham, Justice of the Peace, Deputy Lieutenant, and High Sheriff. Maxtone Graham of Culto-Cuhay in Perth, Scotland. Graham of Larchfield in County Down, which is, I believe, Ireland or Northern Ireland. They were represented in the 19th century by Ogilvy Blair Graham, a captain of the 5th Battalion of Royal Irish Rifles. There's also Graham of Garvock in Perth, Scotland. Graham of Orchil in County Perth, Scotland. And Graham of Inchbreaky in Perth, Scotland. Notables included Elizabeth Graham, or also known as Betsy, born 1737, an American poet and writer who was once engaged to the son of Benjamin Franklin. Sir Robert Graham, born 1744, an English judge and Attorney General to Prince George of Wales. George Graham, born 1715, an Irish officer and in the Royal Navy, who saw service during the War of Austrian Succession. George Graham, born 1633, a clockmaker, inventor, and geophysicist who was a Fellow of the Royal Society. Robert Graham, born 1786, Chair of Botany at the University of Edinburgh and Regius Keeper of the Royal Botanic Garden. Thomas Graham, born 1805, a Scottish chemist known for his pioneering work in dialysis and the diffusion of gases. And lastly, John Graham, Esquire, born 1741, employed in the East India Company and the Supreme Council of Calcutta in India. Here we see a list of early settlers to the New World. Donald Graham came to Virginia in 1655. Elizabeth came in 1676. Jane came the following year. Joseph Graham arrived in Georgia in 1733. Catherine and Elizabeth Graham came to New York in 1738. Angus came 2 years later. Augustine Graham arrived in Nova Scotia, Canada in 1749. And Donald Graham came to Nova Scotia in 1773. And if you enjoyed this video, please visit us at coadb.com, where we offer genealogy research service. Link in the description. Thank you very much.